Distinguished guest, esteemed faculty, and my dear friends, a warm welcome to the second day of Conventus' 2025, the annual management conclave of IMI Delhi. As we gather here today, we embrace a time of change and innovation, an era where the next generation guides the boardroom. Conventus, derived from Latin, means coming together. It symbolizes our gathering to reflect on and contribute to these evolving challenges and opportunities. This year's Conventus invites us to examine the path to this economic goal through the lenses of sustainability, governance, and ESG-driven value creation.
The host for today, Khushi Tiwari and I, Swarnava Chaudhary, are delighted to walk you through the Corporate Sustainability Leadership Summit as part of Conventus 2025. This year's summit revolves around the theme, When the Next Generation Guides the Boardroom. This theme highlights a transformative shift in corporate leaderships, one that empowers the next generation to steer strategic decision making. When the next generation guides the boardroom goes beyond succession, it signifies a redefinition of governance, strategy, and long-term value creation. Driven by digital fluency, purpose, and agility, this new wave of leaders are reshaping the corporate landscape and are embodying what it means to be truly future-ready. Conventus 2025 serves as a platform to showcase how emerging leaders are driving innovation, fostering inclusive growth, and embedding sustainability at the heart of business strategy. As India harnesses its demographic advantage and entrepreneurial spirit, this leadership shift is not merely timely, it is vital for sustaining global relevance and inclusive prosperity.
Before we continue, we would like to showcase the Conventus 2025 theme video to set the context for today's discussion.
India, the nation of young hearts, stands at a new dawn, brimming with a vibrant generation, restless yet rooted, bold yet balanced, not waiting for a seat at the table, but redefining the very room at large.
As boardrooms evolve and the sidelines become the stage, we find ourselves at a pivotal point where lines between hierarchy and harmony blur, and wisdom finds its echo in youth.
Learnings from history, hope for the present, and dream for the future. They have it all.
A nation has come of age, and at Conventus 2025, we are writing its story. Here, courage is the currency and ideas are influence. So let's join hands to welcome the emerging dawn, to anticipate, shape, and embrace the change that will define our future.
In line with the main theme of Conventus 2025, Jagriti, the Social Responsibility Club, is proud to present the Corporate Sustainability Leadership Summit under the theme Beyond Compliance, Embedding Responsibility into ESG-driven Value Creation. Conventus 2025 explores how the next generation of leaders is reshaping governance by embedding sustainability at its core. Today, leadership is not just about efficiency. It's about accountability, resilience, and long-term value. With BRSR and ESRS frameworks gaining traction, businesses are adopting dual lens of sustainability, evaluating both the impact of environmental and social factors on performance and their actions effort on communities and ecosystems. ESG is evolving from compliance to culture, with decisions guided by the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit, measuring success beyond financial returns. Jagriti, the Social Responsibility Club, will spotlight how emerging leaders are aligning purpose with performance, building governance models that balance profitability with positive impact, and creating systems that drive trust, regeneration, and shared value. Before we proceed, we'd like to set the tone for today's discussion. Let's take a moment to watch the summit's theme video.
With the climate crisis and the crisis of social inequality, sustainability is the lens through which your career, your organization's career, the world is going to have to see everything from now on. ESG and sustainability, sustainable business, as possibly the biggest growth opportunity the world's ever seen. We engineer and reconfigure everything. Our business systems, our financial system, our political system, our cultural system, everything has to be re-engineered.
Integrating ESG into your company mission, aligning departments with ESG goals, and making sustainability a business fundamental aren't just best practices. They're transformative steps that position your business as a leader in the modern economy.
ESG can be a win-win for everyone, benefiting companies, society, the environment, and shareholders.
We are honored to have a panel of esteemed leaders with us today who will share their insights on these critical topics. Let us introduce them to you. I welcome Mr. Apurv Kaushik as a guest speaker. Mr. Apurv Kaushik is a global sustainability strategist, climate finance innovator, and real estate ESG specialist with over 14 years of experience across Asia Pacific, Europe, the Middle East, and North America. He has led Deloitte's Asia Pacific Sustainability and Climate Center of Excellence, built AI-powered ESG solutions, and guided organizations through regulatory and market transformations worth over $750 million. Educated at Harvard University and the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership, certified in green bonds, climate finance, and as a lead green associate, Mr. Kaushik brings together policy, finance, and innovation to advance systematic decarbonization and social equity. I now request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal ma'am to honor Mr. Apurv Kaushik with a commemorative gift celebrating his presence at this gathering.
Our next speaker is Mr. Sanjeev K. Kanchan. Mr. Kanchan serves as the Director of ESG and Industry at the International Forum for Environment, Sustainability and Technology, iForest. With over 17 years of distinguished experience, he is a leading voice in environmental governance, ESG strategy, and sustainable industrialization. A certified independent director and ESG leadership professional, Mr. Kanchan has contributed to key policy frameworks, emission trading systems, and environmental standards across India and abroad. His collaborations with global organizations such as UNEP, BEE, and international CEM committees have significantly advanced sustainability and compliance systems worldwide. I would now like to invite Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal ma'am to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Kanchan for gracing us with his presence today.
I next welcome our guest speaker, Ms. Tanu S. Ahuja. A dynamic leader and change maker, Ms. Tanu S. Ahuja serves as the corporate head ESG at Vikas Group. Her professional journey of over 2 decades across Indian automotive industry, including tenures with Maruti Suzuki, Hero MotoCorp, and TVS Motors, reflects her deep commitment to operational excellence and sustainable transformation. At Vikas Group, she has been instrumental in crafting ESG policies, net zero pathways, and gender parity initiatives. Beyond corporate, Ms. Ahuja leads several social initiatives through the Rotary Club of Restoring Smiles, touching lives through healthcare and empowerment. Her remarkable contributions have earned her multiple awards for leadership and governance. I now request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal ma'am to felicitate Ms. Tanu S. Ahuja to express our sincere gratitude for her presence today.
Our next speaker is Mr. Gopal NP. Mr. Gopal is the Vice President of ESG at Knight Frank India, where he leads the organization's sustainability and ESG initiatives. With 13 years of professional experience, he brings deep expertise in green building certification, ESG due diligence, decarbonization, and sustainability reporting across sectors such as real estate, hospitality, and education. Mr. Gopal has successfully delivered over 100 certification projects and has been associated with international programs supported by USAID, the European Union, and the World Bank. His credentials include being a GRI certified professional, an ECBC empaneled expert, and a lead accredited professional. His work continues to advance the integration of ESG principles into India's built environment and infrastructure development. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal ma'am to honor Mr. Gopal as a gesture of warmth and gratitude.
I now welcome our next guest speaker, Mr. Param Puneet Singh. Mr. Param Puneet Singh serves as the Group EHS and Sustainability Head at Impresario Entertainment and Hospitality Private Limited, with a strong command over environmental compliance, occupational safety, and sustainability systems. He has played a key role in strengthening green operations within the hospitality sector. Mr. Singh's leadership extends to areas like wastewater management, zero liquid discharge systems, and workplace safety, ensuring responsible and efficient operations. A NIBOSH certified professional and lead auditor for ISO standards, he embodies the practical side of sustainability, turning vision into day-to-day action. I'll now request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to felicitate Mr. Singh for his in appreciation of his valuable presence here.
To steer this important discussion, we are privileged to have Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal as our moderator. Dr. Goyal is a professor of strategy at IMI Delhi with an extensive background in sustainable business practices. In her current capacity as Dean Academics, ma'am spearheads all full-time PGDM programs, driving them towards academic excellence. Previously, she has served in multiple leadership roles including Dean Career Development and Alumni Services, Dean International Relations, and Program Chair. A PhD from the Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi in the area of strategic management, Dr. Goyal's teaching and research interests lie in sustainable development and social responsibility. She has published academic cases and conducted top management leadership programs and sessions on strategic thinking and execution, CSR, and sustainable development for several leading Indian corporates. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Professor Monica Chopra ma'am to facilitate Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal ma'am with a token of gratitude. We are extremely honored to extend a warm welcome to all our esteemed panelists. We are also delighted to welcome all our distinguished guests from across the world with several years of experience joining us for the on-campus immersion classes of the advanced program on sustainability leadership and ESG strategy conducted by IMI Delhi.
I now hand over the mic to Sonu ma'am to steer this discussion further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this very generous introduction for all the panel members, and a very good evening to all our audience and especially our participants from across India and outside. I don't know if we are connected also on the Zoom link with some of the other participants, and really a very hearty welcome to all our panel members here. And it's a very exciting evening, I must say, because we are talking about a subject which is so close to our heart, and that's on sustainability. And we're talking today about what is the implementability of this, because there has been an intent for last many decades, but now what we are seeing is the accelerating or the momentum that is gaining on this, and that's why we have some very eminent speakers here with us, and interestingly, a very diverse panel, I must say. We have two architects here who have actually worked in this space, and one, of course, is in the consulting space, and then we have one person who has actually literally been a R&D person who has worked with CSC and now working with iForest, and really looking at the back end of how sustainability can be implemented at the ground level. And we have 3 people from industry, one from automotive components, and who has worked intensively in this space. And you know how difficult it is when it comes to supply chains, and you're looking at adherence to sustainability, compliance, etc. And we have one person, Param here, who is from a very exciting brand and a company which is Empresario. And I'm sure a lot of you would have gone to Smokehouse Delhi and many other restaurants, which he is leading through his sustainability efforts as to how to ensure that most of these restaurants, I think there are 90 odd restaurants across India, which he is leading in terms of ensuring that they are adhering to sustainability. And then we have one person, Gopal, who is also an architect, and he is the person who actually, I think I kind of confused between Kanchan and Gopal. Gopal is the architect who has actually been working on green buildings, etc. And he's really working today with a real estate organization. And then, of course, Kanchan is the person who was working with CSC and now working as a person with iForest. So this is a very, I would say, a panel where you can actually hear a lot on multiple dimensions of sustainability, to what extent it's getting implemented, and what do we see and what do we hope for. So without taking too much more time, I'm going to first ask all our panel members to, maybe starting from Tanu, from the extreme end, to talk about what she has been doing and why she thinks sustainability is critical, and what does her day look like when she's talking about sustainability and managing sustainability in the given organization that she is in. What her day looks like, what her work involves. So starting from Tanu, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Honestly, before I start on anything, बहुत सारे panel discussions industry के करते हैं. College में बैठ के ना celebrity वाली feeling आ रही है. So from automotive sector, I mean, you heard that I have been primarily in automotive sector throughout my career. Sustainability. So we were just discussing that we are already 10 years behind what other global leading countries are doing. But how it is faring is, as far as regulations are concerned, then there are a lot of regulations coming in from Indian government also. There is BRSR reporting, which is mandatory for top 1,000 companies, and then top 250 have to include their value chain. So because automotive industry is a very rich industry, गाड़ियाँ बड़ी महंगी आती हैं ना, so they all fall under this 250, so they have to include the supply chain. So even if you are not in top 1,000, or there are no compliances for you being a small player also, but because you are a part of a value chain of that 250, you are mandated to have to go through all these regulations and all. And then apart from that, the carbon pricing which has come into the industry, CBAM which has come into the industry from EU. In fact, now Japan, China, Netherlands, they are also starting up with a carbon pricing. In fact, very soon Indian government is also starting the carbon pricing, which means that the cost of your product will increase based on the emissions embedded into your product. And all industries are very cost competitive industry. थोड़ा सा price कहीं पे भी बढ़ेगा तो आपका business कम होता है, especially in automotive industry because it's a volume game. So it's a huge cost to the industry. So this national regulations, international regulations, they are coming in. Plus nowadays intent is also there, and I can see a lot of it's actually heartening to see that a lot of young professionals are opting this field now. So typically in my organization, how it starts is the very crucial thing is that you have to have the baseline data. Where do you stand? So for that, now again, things are very, very simple because there are a lot of third-party players who have ready-made solutions for your ERPs to calculate your GHG emissions at the back end. So it has become very easy, but it is very important to start measuring where you stand. So it starts off with the measuring of your data. Then it starts off with what your customer demands, where the country has taken targets. For example, our country has taken target to be net zero by 2070, which is the latest of all other countries. Rather, in fact, China has taken target to be carbon net zero by 2060, and we are after that. And then for automotive industry, our major customers Toyota, Maruti, they have all taken target to be net zero by 2040, 2045. So we have to fall in line with what our customers are demanding. So based on that, we are also designing our strategies to become net zero. That's the environmental part of it. I think we will be covering it later. And then for social and governance, Param is, I think, best to talk about more on it. But for industry, again, in social, the safety, the regulation part is the minimum wages that you're complying. You're not hiring any child labor, but it's easier said than done. The tier 1 suppliers or the OEMs, they can completely do it, but automotive industry, down the line is again very, very unorganized. And there are a lot of child labor, is happening. They do not even comply with ISO 9000 systems and all. So supply chain anyways is very, very complicated. So social part will concern your, so we have to, again, KPIs have to be there for social part. Your safety measures are in place, these child labors, minimum wages, and training and skill development. That is a very critical part of social in our company. And one thing again is very good about the young generation is that you are very, very inclusive. I don't know what to. आप लोगों के लिए इंक्लूसिविटी बड़ी नेचुरल है. हमारे टाइम पे मतलब आई डिड मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर, लोगों को सुन के ऐसा लगता था अरे आपने मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग करी है. मतलब बीइंग अ गर्ल एंड डूइंग मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग वैसे वेरी बड़ी बात हो जाती थी. और आज की डेट में भी इंडस्ट्री में यू विल फाइंड वेरी लेस फीमेल्स हु आर इनटू द टेक्निकल फील्ड. बट आप लोग ना बहुत ज़्यादा, यू आर वेरी नेचुरल, यू आर बियॉन्ड जेंडर, your people, your friends, your colleagues. So that is a good thing about it. And diversity and inclusion, that's why, I have to keep it as a specific KPI in my organization under social part. And then governance, of course, is compliances and all, but ESG is all about moving compliances. I don't know whether we will have any, more time to discuss about it later, but it has to be more than compliances in governance. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. With over 15 years experience, mainly into EHS, with first 10 years into manufacturing with various organizations like pharma, paints and adhesives, and FMCG with Unilever, Pidilite, United Breweries, and last 5 years primarily transitioning from EHS to ESG with a very dynamic and growing sector, the F&B sector, and that part also QSR and CDR. So very mouth-watering brands like Domino's Pizza, and multiple restaurants like Social, Smokehouse Delhi, as already mentioned and all. So although it is a very growing and very interesting sector, but all the more complex when we come to the operations, when we come to talking about ESG part. So a very unorganized sector majorly, but yes, with the big players coming in, definitely imbibing them into primarily because of the domestic market, the needs of BRSR. So in terms of Jubilant, we've been doing this. We've been listed and doing the limited assurance as well as reaching out to the scale of reasonable assurance for BRSR. And now with Impresario stepping into this, keeping in multiple brands, multiple big names, restaurants as well as commissaries and all the supply chain part also, and imbibing into BRSR. This huge scope with the complexity that it brings. And a huge manpower involved because if I talk about Jubilant, we have more than 30,000 employees. So if you talk about the social pillar that we cater to, the community engagement, the trainings and upskilling part, the DEI part especially, so it becomes a lot more challenging, but yes, a lot more scope to scale it up to that level. Thank you.
Thank you. So as Madam mentioned, I have a background in architecture, and I've always been associated with buildings throughout my career. It's only lately that I've realized that buildings, yes, they are major energy guzzlers, but that's not the only thing to look at. There is also involvement of other professionals, especially when I talk about my role in my organization at Knight Frank. So Knight Frank has a mandate of going net zero by 2040. And my task here at Knight Frank is to ensure I take this journey ahead and ensure compliance with the SBTi requirements. That's the pathway which we are following. So so ESG is, as I said, it cannot be done by one person. It requires all departments to come together. So that's the beauty of ESG. And what I've tried to do it formulate a committee incorporating the head HR, the head finance, the head admin, the head IT as well, because ESG is not just about environment; it's about social. And as Tanuji just mentioned, diversity is an important aspect in governance as well. So all of these departments have to come together, and that is where I feel there is synergy. And every department or every every department rather, as I said, needs to come together. And my task is to ensure that everybody is on top of what they have committed, whether it is IT, and I can give a couple of examples to let you know how IT, HR, all of these have a very important role to play. Of course, governance is all about policies, and HR has an important part in that. But IT as well. I'll give you a very small example. We were wasting a lot of paper, as in people used to give printouts, and then the printouts are there on the printer, and nobody is there to take it. It's very casual attitude, right? So what we have done, again, this is through the committee brainstorming. And the idea was how to reduce paper, because ESG or sustainability is about making the optimal use of resources, right? It's fairly simple that ways. It's basically common sense, but then, it's not very common, especially in organizations, right? So we discussed a strategy that is whenever somebody gives a print command, unless they go to the printer and punch the password, the print will not come out. So we have saved around 10 to 15% of our paper usage just by a simple technique. So what I'm trying to say is it's not just associated with one department, and everybody has a great role to play, in moving towards the ESG goals. The other side of work that I do is on the business side of things, wherein I advise clients who are looking for ESG strategies, whether it is LEED certification, WELL certification, which is mainly focused on the occupants, because S covers, S is often ignored, right? We always focus on E aspect. So WELL building standards is something which solely focuses on the occupants. And of course, we are working with banks as well. Now you might be wondering, how does this fit in? So ESG is sector agnostic, right? So it means it is applicable to all sectors. And I'll give you one example of how we work with banks and what goes into the overall scheme of things. So whenever an investment is coming from the EU region into the Indian banks, they have to divert the capital to some developer or an owner. So SFDR, which is an EU regulation, mandates that the end user also has to adhere to SFDR requirements. So we kind of help the bank and the developer formulate a policy which they can take it forward and essentially ensure that the developer or the end user, adheres to the requirement. So these are some of the things that I am doing. Hopefully we'll get time to speak on other aspects later.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I started my work from sustainable industrialization since 97, 98. When first GRI thing came into picture, we were lucky to be part of that, helping that develop. Still, we are learning about that. GRI, just the terminology which we used to talk about sustainability has now come ESG. There was no word ESG by that time. So I have got immersed into now ESG, developing new ESG framework. For example, if there is a BSR, now you know. So the further step of that is right now which BSR is a common platform, common form. It has to be associated with sectoral framework as well, supplemented with the sectoral framework. Otherwise, the general thing which is not enough disclosive and you cannot use it, compare it, and for the ultimate purpose of ESG, what you are writing it for. So I am into that. So the sustainability word, keeping in the mind of this is more of student group. So I would say sustainability word you will see very often. It started since Brundtland Commission. after United Nations conference in 1972. We still hear it. We'll keep hearing it. The reason behind, I understand, is that time, 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years back, or maybe when industrialization started in USA and all, so there was enough resources with them, enough land, enough environment was good enough, clean, so they had the opportunity and privilege to pollute. Now, with the limited land, limited resources, more population, you have to compete. Now you have to prove what you are going to produce, you have to be more efficient than other. So if you are producing, you have to be careful of the environment, that people have limited scope, and you know what kind of environment we have. You have to deal with your society, your local community. You have to make the governance to make these two things work, environment and social. So you have to compete. Now going ahead, I see that ESG is being more complicated, more exhaustive. So I think the role now for you people will also have in the industry is not just writing the report. There's no sustainability report going ahead with the industry now. That is now being replaced by integrated reporting. Now it is coming ESG reporting. Furthermore, you will see there is new reporting, sectoral reporting, and many other things coming up, which is more exhaustive. So there is a role, get involved into it, not theoretical part, but I would say very important part is coming that you get involved in the practicality of it, applicability of it, that you can implement on the ground over there. So my role, I have been lucky that I have got on the ground with the hardcore industry, working on those processes on energy efficiency, pollution control. From that, also have played a little role of reporters when I was writing for Down to Earth. So going to the society on all those areas and figure out on the ground how the implementation is happening, what the watchdog is talking about the industry, what industry is claiming. So from all those platforms I have gone through, so I have grown up learning and I have got that thing into me. So I would certainly say there's a future ahead. Get the practicality part of it. Beyond theory, you have to get involved, immersed in the learning and innovate something new. That's the future for India, for us.
So, hi everyone. I think more or less everything has been covered already with everyone who spoke before me. But I'll try to give you an insight into what my journey has been like. I trained as an architect initially, and I worked in the green development space for a while, both in India and in the US. And there was a sharp contrast in the way sustainable development was being approached in these two very different economies, right? I eventually started to explore how to make sustainable development progress in the Indian market within the context and the challenges of the that are India specific. And this led me to explore low cost development models specific for our built environment sector. And then once I had built a few buildings, I realized that I needed to understand a few things in more detail, which led me to pursue sustainable development in my further studies, which then took me to a role and allowed me to work in the affordable housing sector in the Bay Area in California, where it was a big challenge. Housing is a huge crisis over there. What I was able to bring to that, given my experience and my background till that point in time, was how do we embed sustainability and green building practices and environmentally conscious building practices into affordable housing projects within the Bay Area. Now, those of you who have been to California and San Francisco, you'd be aware that it's a fairly progressive part of the US economy as well. And even 10 years ago, California was already doing and in fact leading the world in where the rest of us are starting to catch up now. So we were not calling it ESG per se as such, but a lot of focus of organizations in the Bay Area, as well as the leadership that we had over there in different companies, it was already on ensuring that we go beyond environmental compliances in our project and also look at how we govern our companies. Are these organizations socially just as well? And mind you, this was not mandated by the state government till that point in time. So that is something which is quite fantastic about California as a siloed economy in itself, that they are very progressive about how they want to go about things. So within the US market, they tend to be the leaders in this space, whether it's environmental or social. And I was responsible as a part of the company that I was in. I was responsible for looking at B Corp certifications, at just certifications for our organization, which made me discover the world of ESG as such. And once I moved back to India, I was onboarded by an organization over here, which was a lending company working primarily in the affordable housing sector within the Indian market. And I was tasked to design and implement the ESG strategy for this company over here, which ensured, or rather, which in this role, I had to ensure that ESG strategy is not something which is limited to the board level. I was responsible directly to work with our investors as well, understanding what kind of policy requirements they might have, because in India, that's even till today to some extent, but especially maybe 5 years ago or 6-7 years ago, this was primarily an investor driven exercise, right? So if there's investor pressure coming in because your investors are based overseas, as the example that even Gopal was using, that if your money flowing in from Europe or the American markets, if you want to attract it into India, then besides your regular financial commitments, there were caveats about sustainability and social compliances as well. And if you're working with DFIs, the likes of World Bank and ADB and AFD and so on and so forth, then you needed to make sure that the kind of environmental and social compliances that their projects are following around the world, the Indian projects that the money gets flowed into, it also incorporates all of those requirements. So by the virtue of having worked both in the Western market as well as in the Indian market, I was able to tie what's the ground reality of the construction sector in India to the policy level requirements of the West. And moving forward from that role, I went into the world of consulting and started to advise banks, private equity firms, and other, honestly, companies in virtually every possible sector that you can imagine, which is the role of a high-level strategy consultant would be within this space, on how to shape either their ESG strategy or how to shape their decarbonization strategy, how to set up transition plans if that's the space that they're in. And the kind of challenges that we would work on would differ, and problems that we would work on would differ week on week, depending on where the client was coming in from. So if you're in a global practice, then you could have a client 2 weeks from now who's sitting in the UK, and then 4 weeks from now who's sitting in Japan, and then they all have a very different requirement set. So you need to be quick on your feet to understand what kind of to begin with, what kind of issues they are facing and the kind of compliances that they need to be aware of at the bare minimum, and then advise them on what kind of next steps they can take going forward from here.
So thank you. That was really insightful, because we got a sense of what each of our panel members are talking about from their own perspective, the kind of industries and sectors that they are coming from. Over the last, I would say, 15 years, the Indian regulation has really evolved with respect to sustainability. And though we are still at a very nascent stage, but there is still little more structure, right? But from your own experience, what do you see? What really differentiates a firm which is ESG compliant from the one which is ESG driven? There is a big difference, because what we still see that it's more about compliance than value creation, which is embedded in ESG. So what will it take for the companies to go from compliance mode to be really ESG driven, which is basically the theme of our panel? So whoever wants to take it first can take it, and then we can rotate the mic. Yeah,
I can take the first one.
Yeah, please.
So I think this is a very important question, and I'm really glad that we have a room full of people who are interested in this conversation, because I've seen and I've worked in teams and I've worked with organizations who treat ESG, and this is not to say this is not being critical of them as such. I understand that different clients have different limitations depending on where they're coming from. But I work with clients who treat this as a compliance-based exercise, which tends to reduce it to a tick box sort of exercise where you do the bare minimum to avoid potential fines or legal action depending on where you're sitting. The biggest difference where we have worked with clients who have moved beyond compliance or who have really started to treat ESG as more of a strategic move. We have seen this especially in some of the larger players who are working, not necessarily limited to them, but especially in some of the larger players who are leading within their respective sectors and who might have exposure outside of India as well, who want, and a part of their DNA, the common thing I would say is that they want to be very competitive, right? So they want to ensure that within their immediate sector, they are seen as leaders in this space. So they are not really comparing themselves to what's happening within their immediate geography. They are really competing with what's happening with the best of the best. So you would look at, they would want to benchmark themselves against, okay, what are some of the best, for example, if you're talking about financial services, what are the best banks in the UK doing, or Switzerland doing, or US doing, or Australia for that matter. And then you start to see where are those gaps and how can we make sure that we are really competitive. What's really nice to work with such clients is that they tend to move the market up, because then the people who have been treating this as a compliance exercise, they need to catch up, because now the immediate regional market has moved up. And it's a joy to work with such clients because they see the value in using what we are calling as ESG as a means to distinguish themselves from the rest of the market. And as a result, a lot of times, a lot of the hard work that otherwise you would have to do to convince a client to do certain things, you don't really have to do that. So as a consultant, our jobs becomes a lot easier when working with such clients. I would say, I think, so for example, within the Indian market from the banking sector, I would say HDFC is doing this job quite well. Internationally, some of the clients that are doing incredible in this space, in the insurance sector, for example, Aviva, which is a UK-based client, is someone that we worked with when I was at KPMG. They are doing really well. And Apollo Global is doing a fantastic job in private equity and asset management. So there are multiple such examples in different geographies, but yeah, these are the people who make sure that the ball continues to move forward. And I would say even that one of the organizations that I was working with, IIFL Home Finance, they are doing a really good job within the NBFC sector in India and working with affordable housing developers.
When we talk about compliance and going over and above that, I would say there are two parts to it. Since 2016, regulatory framework itself has not been sustainable. Once we had a plethora of acts and rules being repealed and updated in 2016, and by the time those things landed on ground, by 2018, 2020, you had a lot many of almost 90% amendments in that. So once you, as an organization, have an action plan in place, like I take an example of plastic waste management rules. It was a complete overhaul from 2011, finally touched upon in 2016. Every year we've been having amendment in that. And it rather than being, policy being an enabling ecosystem or a regulatory direction, it rather acts as a shock. So to have a action plan or to enforce that on the ground, you are found just catching up to the updated versions of that. And on the second part, there's a huge difference between how the center is driving the policies, and at the state level, the awareness and the will to implement it. And that is lacking. I'll quote one example. In terms of waste mapping and waste management, 2017, while in the state of Rajasthan, we did from waste disposal to landfill, we shifted to waste disposal to co-processing, which was a very grand concept for many core sector industries like cement. It can replace almost 30% of its raw material with the other fuels. Waste of other industries is a fuel for them. So we adopted it, we were part of it, and we were related to be aligned and going ahead in that time. Come forward to 2023, working in the state of Uttar Pradesh, there was no precedent of it. It took us 6 months just to convince Pollution Control Board of State to enter that into our consent to operate. Our consent got delayed by 6 months because they could not understand how this can be done, how a transboundary movement of waste can be done from UP to Rajasthan. And such is the realities, and so much I would say itna bhi uthal puthal nahi sahi hai in terms of regulatory framework. We need at least when an act or rule has come in, and what is essential is still lacking. Factories Act of 1948 is still in place. OHS Code 2020 has still not landed. That is still stuck since 5 years. So it's dicey on both the parts. One is bare minimum compliances. That itself is challenging with the ever changing or amendments coming in. And then with our ESG goals, with our BRSR requirements and all, going overboard to that, that is a different set of challenges.
I'll add into it very interesting part. When we say beyond compliance, if anybody of you have gone through any BRSR report of any company, so if you see, I'm into the part of it, so that's why I'm saying. So if you see the kind of reporting it is asking, so you will see the information being asked and information being provided. There is a huge gap. Clearly about the understanding, the question which is being asked, the person who has written, he understands what the perspective of that is. The person who is filling it has different perspective, may not have the understanding. So it is still, so overall, the message which comes out if you go through it, so it is still, BRSR particularly is compliance driven. You have been asked to do, so you are doing. So what is required to do beyond compliance? One is that you have first the intent to do, or you have you see there is a drive. What is driving you to write that report? If driving factor is behind you is the compliance, so you will meet the compliance. If the driving factor is that the compliance is also helping you to improve your profitability, you will do it better without telling it. There's an incident, if you see that we say that Indian industry is far behind from the benchmark or performance than the other country. It is there. We are highly polluting. We have lesser efficiency. Indian cement industry is the second best in the world. For per ton of cement production, it consumes nearly 0.5 gigajoule or gigacalorie of energy. Very close to what Japan does. How did we reach to that level? We reached to that level because we find for cement industry, the coal or any input material which is required for energy or reduction of the element to produce is coming from energy. If you are saving energy, you are getting benefit. That is 70-80% of your expense. So if you are utilizing that, you are getting benefit. So that is their business drive. So nobody told them that you have to improve your energy efficiency. They did themselves. So what did it control? First, they started improving the efficiency of their process to reduce the energy consumption. Second, from pollution, what the dust goes out is the cement. So they started capturing it so that it increased their output at the end, which is sellable product. So there was a drive, which is compliance one part, but the drive which is making the business a profitable thing. So here the thing is, beyond compliance for BRSR publishing, what is the benefit? Right now it is just a compliance requirement. So that intent is clear if you go through the report. Second part is, if it is going beyond compliance, you also need the person to understand what is required, why it is required, and how you have to do this. So the capacity building. There's a big team. I'm talking about the biggest industrial sectors in this. I'm not taking the name. I'm going to release 2-3 reports in the next couple of weeks. So what I'm finding it, the biggest industries in India, which has in a corporate environment at least 30-40 people, even they write the report the way you do not expect them that they are writing this thing. For example, I'm giving you a sense, it is environmental, but you should understand it. It is writing that how much emission for dust, we are talking about the PM, you release every year in the environment. What does it mean? How would you like to report? An industry will have multiple stacks. Every stack has different process, different pollution norms. So what you will write, which norm you will write? It has just asked you for this year how much you have emitted. There is no clarity. So the people have given average of ambient air quality, 30 microgram per normal meter cube or meter cube. That doesn't serve the purpose. The number is saying what you are asking, but it is not correct. But you are also not correct because you didn't ask it completely. You didn't ask the right thing. It asked for the process because BRSR is the company reporting. So in total in your company, when you are producing such amount of thing, you're consuming this amount of raw material, how much you are releasing in total from the stack. It's a basic understanding. Ambient air quality is microgram. It is about the area. You are talking about the company. It is about the stack emission. But it is not written, so they are not writing. So I see the funny numbers across. So only 2-3 companies in the big industries I saw in the report of around 35, 2-3 companies, those who are dealing at the corporate level at the global platform, the leading, because they have exposure. They have multiple requirements. Requirement at the global platform, for example, CBAM, because they will see all those criteria. They feel carbon disclosure project. They are the part of TCFD. They are part of World Steel Association. They are part of other requirements. Now you have CCTS. So they have been filling multiple forms, so they know what it is. What is required, again, to summarize, drive. What is the drive? So our government or whoever is writing that norm, they are also learning it. That is the point. That is why it is evolving. Today is this West, before BRSR, there was a BRR. Now it can be BRSR. Now it will be supplement to BRSR. Things are improving. So of course, everybody has to learn from their part, and there has to be a drive. It is not just having a norm. Command control thing will not work in 1.4 billion population. No, it doesn't work.
Right. So to add on to that, I would like to just focus on the people, because people are the core of every organization, right? And companies who focus on people often thrive, and the retainership is high. People don't leave, right? And I would like to touch upon a couple of examples here. I would like to give an example of Knight Frank office, in Delhi. The AQI, in winters, it's often very high, and it's not a nice thing to be in that space for, even for 4 hours. So when I joined Knight Frank, and obviously before that as well, we used to get complaints of, teary eyes and headaches and all that. Right. So what do? Either you don't care about employees, or you say, okay, it's my moral responsibility, which is what Beyond Compliance talks about, right? Of course, compliance will help you achieve greater thresholds, but at least the basic drive has to be there, as he said. So what do? So I was tasked to see how you can mitigate that problem, right? So we did something. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the summary is that we managed to get the EQ down below 25 in Delhi. We also renovated some portion of the office, again with the focus of retaining people. Otherwise, it's very easy for people to say the employers don't care about us, right? And as I said, people are the core of every organization. If you want to excel, people will do wonders for you, but only if you provide the right environment. So this is one example where I felt, because people have to be given that space. People have to have that environment to do what they want. And the other thing which, another example which I would like to give is a small one, which will not be, applicable to all, but then it's these days we all talk about mindful eating, right? We are all sort of getting conscious, right? So what we did is we have a canteen, and we thought, let us put what is the calorie per serving, in the dish, so that people know what is it that they are consuming. And as a result, at least you give them a choice, right? What to have and what not to have. It's then a choice. If you don't give them a choice, and of course, educating them is very important as well. So we do have trainings on why this is important, why mental health is important. Because as I said, without people, we are nowhere. Right. So these are the two examples which I felt, made a lot of difference, and people or organizations should look at such measures. Of course, compliance is one, report is there, but implementation is something which gives us greater joy, and that is the real thing which we want to achieve.
I think I'll move back to your core question that, how the companies are, benefiting if they embed ESG into their core values or something. So, any company which has a specific vision or core value or purpose on which the complete empire is built, that company will thrive. For example, Lego. Lego is a name. आप building block की बात करो, आपके दिमाग में Lego आता है, ठीक है ना? क्यों? लीगो का सिंपल एक जो स्टेटमेंट है, अपना जो विजन है, वो क्या है? वी बिलीव वी वांट टू डेवलप द बिल्डर्स ऑफ टुमारो. उनका पूरा बिजनेस सिर्फ उसी पे थ्राइव कर रहा है, एंड वी कैन सी दैट लेगो इज थ्राइविंग, ठीक है? आइकिया है, आइकिया का सिंपल मोटो है, वी वांट टू मेक एवरीडे लाइफ ईजी फॉर पीपल. इट इज़ थ्राइविंग. सो सिमिलरली ESG या कोई भी विजन, कोई भी एक वैल्यू आप लेते हो, उसको अगर आप इनबिल्ड करते हो तो बिजनेस भी थ्राइव. ESG के अंदर इतने सारे, मतलब मैं आपको जितना, मतलब हम सबके पास बहुत सारे एग्जांपल्स होते हैं. ये प्लास्टिक वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट की बात कर रहे थे. आई टेल यू, बीइंग इन द इंडस्ट्री, मतलब वो 5 लाख की जगह हम 25 लाख रुपए भी भर रहे हैं सरकार को, क्योंकि सिस्टम प्रॉपरली डिज़ाइन नहीं है, कुछ ना कुछ लूप होल्स उसके अंदर है. बट being that you're conscious about these things, is that you have to be aware. If ESG is embedded into your these business tactics, you should know that what is coming ahead. जैसे we are into refrigeration industry, ACs बनाते हैं हम. एक टाइम पे RAC बंद हो गया था 1 2 3 4, अब वो उसका नया वर्जन आया. अभी ये भी बंद हो के वो CO2 बेस्ड या कुछ और वो उस पर आएगा. वी आर अवेयर दैट आज नहीं तो कल वो आ जाएगा. सो वी आर ऑलरेडी putting our R&D, our capex into R&D to develop new compressors which are friendly with lower global warming potential gases. So that is how you are embedding ESG into your business decisions. और जैसे प्लास्टिक मोल्डिंग कंपोनेंट्स है, मैं इंडस्ट्री की बात कर सकती हूँ, तो उसमें there are 2 components which are going to be banned, क्योंकि उसके अंदर अगेन उनका GHG वैल्यू हाई होता है. अब ये पता है कि ये बैन होने वाला है, तो इट्स बेटर दैट you start preparing today. The alternative material which is available, it is obviously costly, but then you have to put in the measures. You have to design your processes in more efficient manner so that it is cost competitive when it comes down tomorrow. Waste management, abhi there is again you have to be ahead of the curve. The regulations have come for non-ferrous also. EPR, which is just for the plastic, it is coming for non-ferrous material. पूरी ऑटो इंडस्ट्री स्टील और एल्यूमिनियम से भरी हुई है. अभी ये रेगुलेशन आने वाला है, बट अब जब तक सर पे डंडा नहीं आएगा 2026 में, जो कंपनीज वो आर नॉट, वो जस्ट फॉलोइंग द कंप्लायंसेस, दे विल फॉल बिहाइंड, दे विल लूज द कॉम्पिटिटिव एज ऑन द टॉप लाइन. नाउ बट द कंपनी हु इज ऑलरेडी अहेड ऑफ द कर्व, following this what is going to happen, and taking decision based on what is going to come tomorrow, so they will have a competitive edge over the new business. That is how the industry is moving.
Very well said. And I'm so happy that everybody was able to really keep the hope alive, which is extremely important, because sometimes it gets very depressing because everybody feels that this is more cosmetic and lip service than what is actually happening on the ground. So there is hope that companies are actually looking forward to seeing as to how ESG can be the driver for creating the value and the competitive edge and advantage in the given industry. And I think that's just about this is just the beginning. And I think we're going to see a huge amount of momentum in this space going forward. One last question, maybe 1 or 2 lines from each of you, because I think we have a huge audience here who is looking forward to asking a lot of questions from each one of you. How do you see, the given industry space, maybe the industries that you are with, or overall, is to how optimistic are we in terms of our ability to achieve the government agenda and the goals, targets that we have created, which is net zero and even the SDG 2030, because India also has its NDCs. So where do we see ourselves today?
See, I think politically तो नहीं बोलना चाहिए, but I am very very hopeful with this government that we are moving in right direction. From my industry point of view specifically, if I tell you, whatever targets we take, we are able to achieve that. थोड़ा तो disruption आता है भी, जैसे we were just discussing during lunch also that India was at BS4 and we jumped directly to BS6. The industry had spent billions of dollars into move transitioning from BS4 to BS6. That was a target given to the industry. There was no BS5. भैया आपको नर्सरी क्लास से सीधा उठा के 5वीं क्लास में फेंक दिया गया था. So the industry coped up and it coped up well. So whatever NDCs are there and the way the government is also putting in lot of initiatives. इतनी सारी योजनाएं, मतलब PLI है, आपका फार्मेस है, पूरा RE के ऊपर चल रहा है, मतलब सस्टेनेबिलिटी के ऊपर बहुत सारे the government is also giving you feasibilities. There are loans which are available at a lower rate of interest if you are purchasing efficiency more efficient equipments. BE आपको जो आप energy efficient motors अगर आप replace करते हो तो BE आपको 2% कम पे मतलब finance करने को तैयार बैठा है. So government is also supporting in all these things, and companies, moreover, the industry now has the intent to move in this direction. And as we were just discussing in the previous question that there is a business case for this. It is not just that spending money. If you are embedding ESG into your core business value, you are improving your top line and bottom line both. So I'm very very hopeful that we are moving in a right direction. Maybe some extra push is required, but we are moving in the right direction.
I'll go 2 examples in this. First is as part of the F&B sector, we are concentrated more or less in the urban centers. You don't find much of QSR or restaurants in the rural or tier 3 areas. And urban centers are already, in terms of water, they're already categorized either by CSW as overexploited or critically groundwater stressed areas. So embedding the ESG goals such as water neutrality, it does not become a long-term thing. It has become a business continuity imperative now. Because as we are growing, if I take example of Delhi NCR, maybe in Greater Noida we have a groundwater level of 10 meters. But as we go up to Gurgaon touching Rajasthan, it goes down to 30 or 40 meters. And we see more of commercial activity there. We see more of presence of our sector there than the outskirts like Greater Noida. So water neutrality has definitely become a business continuity aspect now. Another example is more related to my sector, that FSSAI regulates for the RUCO, repurposed used cooking oil, which in also a G20 summit, there was a commitment among largely G20 countries for the biofuel encouragement. And we, in terms of all the QSR and CDR, we have been able to achieve 100% compliance to that all the used cooking oil is going to the approved aggregators, which is getting into manufacturing of biodiesel. So ESG goals no longer seem to be like long-term things or maybe not able to land on ground, but yes, they are getting into the imperative of business continuity as well.
Right. So I'll briefly touch upon the real estate sector. Obviously the ESG goals cannot be achieved in a day, right? And as far as the green building movement is concerned, it started I think way back in 2001, where a lot of companies invested in buildings to be greener. Now there was a myth, and there still is, that green buildings are costlier. And even with ESG, as I said, investing on people is much costlier. But I think I've covered that part, that investment on people reaps benefits in the longer run. But on the E part, what we have seen is there is a lot of uptake because it makes business sense, as Tanu said. And everything comes down to that, right? And we often sit with banks and the CFOs of developers, explaining them, what is the incremental cost that is going to be versus what is the ROI that you will get. Because if they see that the ROI is within 5 years, then it makes business sense. And in reality, it does make sense to invest in a green building, because when a building is getting built, you can tweak the design, and it's not cost intensive at all. So it's just about making the owners or developers aware about what is the incremental cost, if there is any, and what is the ROI. So that is something which I see a lot of improvement in developers, and not just developers, in companies rather, because every company has to have a building. And I see that we are in the right direction. As far as policies are concerned, as a part of my earlier stint, I was working with governments on regulatory frameworks which will be mandated for residential and commercial building, which is Conventus' Samhita for residential and Energy Conservation Building Code for commercial buildings. So I see there is, all the states are, refining these policies to suit their own conditions, to suit their own needs. So I see a lot of traction, and I think, all these will add up eventually, and we should be able to achieve their goals. And let's hope for the best, and we are very optimistic.
So the question is, if net zero is possible, feasible or not. So there are two aspects to say it. One is, when you ask this question on geopolitical platform, are we able to achieve the net zero? Another is how green, efficient, or your in-house industries or environment is. So for the geopolitical platform, I'm certain you will see that we have achieved. On in-house, if you are able to make it happen, I would say I'm hopeful. If you have seen I'm not a movie watcher very frequently, but if you see the Forrest Gump, hope is a big thing.
I would say, I would add to what Sanjeev was just saying. I'm quite hopeful that this is going to happen, and I'll tell you why. I'm also glad that India and China are two of the fastest growing economies in the world. They've deliberately pushed their goals a bit further south than the rest of the world, and China is poised to achieve this by 2060. Not poised, but rather they're committed. And India has said that we'll do it by 2070 instead. When this news came out initially, it was a bit of a downer, I would say, because we really would want to be competitive with the rest of the world. Right? So if there are countries in Europe who have committed to net zero by 2040, and a large chunk of the world is trying to do this by 2050 just to align themselves to the Parisian goals. But then you also need to see the realities of these markets themselves, right? China and India both are two of the biggest markets in the world, and they need some extra time to make sure that they are getting compliant all the way down to the last organization that's working within any sector. The reason why I'm quite hopeful that these goals would be achieved is supply chains around the world, they are interconnected more than ever, right? And as a result, there are actually clients that we have worked with in the developing parts of the world in Southeast Asia who are much further behind in their net zero commitments compared to their European counterparts. But if your parent company or if your client is sitting in Europe or in a slightly different market and you're a part of their global supply chain, then you have no option but to comply to the client's requirements first rather than your nation's requirements. So you will see a lot of examples of many companies who will end up achieving these goals a lot faster than what India has set out its target to be. So not all companies in India are going to wait till 2065 that now let's figure out what do we need to do in the next 5 years. A lot of them would start to achieve them a lot sooner. So global supply chain interconnectivity is one of the reasons why I'm quite hopeful that this will happen. The other reason is that just being ready for an opportunity. So moving beyond what you need to do at the bare minimum, and then looking at examples where if an organization is ready to nab an opportunity and become a part of the global network of whether it be manufacturing or any other aspect, they need to be ready immediately. They need to be ready today, right? Or as soon as possible, rather than wait to be compliant to those requirements when they come in. So think of it like I know this is not the only reason why we ended up getting the Apple factory in India, but just to use that as an example, imagine that the Indian manufacturing sector was not as mature as it is today. And if Apple sitting in the US decide that they need to diversify their supply chain and move some of the manufacturing outside of China, and they're looking for other countries as potential options and other geographies. And if India is not ready, then obviously this would have gone to somebody else. But because of the fact that we have been ready, our manufacturing sector has a decent amount of maturity on the global scale, we were able to nab that opportunity very quickly. So the second reason why I think this will happen a lot fast, definitely is going to happen and might happen before 2070 for a lot of organizations, is because everyone likes to make money. Indians, I think, especially like to make money. We're an aspirational economy. So we would want to be ready to nab those opportunities as they start to come our way.
So I think we are a lot more hopeful in what we were 1 hour before the panel started. So thank you so much for all the views and experiences that have been expressed in this discussion. And I think we are now open to question and answers. And I think we can pass the mic around depending on who wants to ask any question. Yeah, please, are there mics? Yeah, or you can pass on who is here helping with this. Please can come here and help with the
Thank you, ma'am, for giving the opportunity to ask a question in this particular forum. Myself, Harsh Jain. I come from a banking background, so I'll limit my question to the strategy team over here. My question is like, will competitive growth strategy hamper the UN target, 2050 target, with while considering RCP 4.5 or SSP 1 or 2? Will competitive growth strategy hamper the UN target for 2050? Because tipping point may be near somewhere. And while we consider the RCP 4.5 or 2.6 or SSP 1 or 2 scenarios. So thank you.
And again, this is one of the reasons why we have asked for some extra time, right? We do realize, I think, as a country that will be a bit slower in contributing our part to the global agenda and aligning to the Paris goals. And I'm glad you bring up this question, because we are already, I think we have crossed some of those thresholds. I think the 1.5 goal is already in hindsight, and there's going to be a lot more action required to be able to just be compliant to 1.5. And a lot of scientists around the world are already saying that this is something which might not be a feasible goal anymore. We might have to, move this further out. There's a lot of international pressure also coming, where people are now starting. In fact, there's a recent article that Bill Gates, I don't know how many of you have read it, he, as a part of his blog, he recently blogged this, I think just this week, that, it's okay to trade off, to create some kind of a trade-off. It's okay to, maybe go higher by a few decimal points in terms of global warming, and create trade-offs with human welfare instead. This tug of war of sorts is always going to be there. I think it's going to be very important for organizations to evaluate for themselves which side of the story would they want to land on. When it comes to, when you're looking back at today, the decisions that you take today, say maybe 25 years from now. So when you're in 2050 already, and you're looking back at what are the kind of decisions that our organization took back in 2025 and 2030, and how has that contributed to bringing us where we are as an organization today. Those are the kind of things that the leadership would, within these organizations, they would have to keep in mind to make sure that the decisions align them to the best possible outcome.
Hello. afternoon. My question is, as I understand, one of the major challenges in achieving net zero is neutralizing embedded carbon. So what are the thoughts on neutralizing embedded carbons in our buildings, especially the existing buildings, infrastructure, and the new built out and the processes, other than going and buying carbon credit? With buying carbon credit for me looks like just paying a penalty after doing a mistake. So what, any ideas on that?
So, this, all boils down to the data. That is something that we have seen, especially in the Indian market. And, a lot of green building certifications touch upon the embodied carbon as, one of the talking points in that space. So what we have seen, it's right now it's very difficult to have an alternative, especially because the data gathering process is not in place right now, and for the embodied carbon to be calculated, like the edge tool, for example, if you have seen, it does help to an extent to understand what is the embodied carbon, but it doesn't really give you an alternative, to arrive at a solution to mitigate that number. So it's it's very early stages, at least for the Indian subcontinent, is what I think. And unless we sort of the EPD, as they call it, the specification sheet for data, unless all that is regulated, there is no credibility to whatever a manufacturer shares. So again, it's a gray area in that sense. So in terms of material, I would say we still have some way to go. And as far as alternatives is concerned, it's not there right now, although we are moving towards eco-friendly chemicals. For example, in one of the buildings, we used bricks. We made bricks from the same mud that we excavated for the footing. So there we sort of reduce the transportation cost and other costs associated, because manufacturing also happened in that place itself. So I think we have to come with innovative techniques to mitigate this risk. But to answer your question, there are very few alternatives that we have right now.
Still a very vague thought.
So materials is one of the aspects, right? It's not the only aspect, but very important aspect as well. Some of it, can be mitigated by way of designing a building as well, right? You sort of ensure that the sun does not hit the glass and thereby come inside the building and the heat load increases, right? So it's a combination of things, but purely on the material side, I'm not aware about any framework that exists. Maybe Apurva can throw some light on that in case there is.
So I think, correct me if I understood your question in the right way or not. So you wanted to understand about embodied emissions, and at the same time within the context of existing buildings, right?
Both existing and the new infrastructure that
both existing and new. So I think what Gopal just mentioned, that would look at all the new construction that might happen. But then when it comes to existing buildings, so embodied carbon essentially it's already there, right? It's in the building, and there's a saying within the construction industry that the greenest building is the one that's never built, right? So because you are avoiding a lot of emission that the activity of construction in itself is going to create. So one is that if you're going to construct from the scratch, then obviously you need to be very mindful of the kind of materials that you would want to select to be a part of your structure. And at the same time, you would also want to look at, is it possible to reduce emissions from any other sources? So again, something that Gopal touched upon, that can things be sourced locally, instead of going to a quarry in Italy and then getting your marble from there. It's a lot better if you get it from Rajasthan, and it's even better if you can just get, routing done on site itself. You need to essentially then break down the activities which are a part of the construction cycle, and then see which activity has the maximum amount of emissions and then take steps to mitigate that. When it comes to existing buildings, the only option you have left, because embodied emissions very much they are already embodied in the building if it exists. The longer a building can stay on site, the better is the impact, because if you rather than imagine it like this, that instead of constructing a new building of the exact same size of the exact same plot on this, every 10 years, if the same one building can last for the next 100 years, then obviously the amount of emissions caused as a part of that activity would be significantly lower. The option then that you have in that kind of a scenario is, again, when you look at where are my emissions coming from, then in these kind of buildings, you're looking at operational emissions, because the building is a functioning machine in a way. So because of the simple fact that lights are getting switched on, ACs are running, you are going to create emissions. And then in order to reduce those operational emissions, you would want to look at potentially things like retrofitting, right? How do you improve your machinery? How do you improve your systems to be able to reduce those operational emissions? Can you go off grid? Possibly, right? In case your specific project has a lot of grid-based emissions. And once everything is done, obviously, it's impractical to imagine that there's going to be a truly, completely net zero building as such. Not building, but rather project in the sense that you can remove every single source of emission, live emissions. Therein, I think what you suggested later on, that carbon offsets can come in as the very, very last step when you have no other option left. And you have done every possible thing imaginable, realistically, that's been possible to remove all sorts of emissions.
So I do not know if there is an umbrella regulation which fulfills the requirement.
About to ask that, I thought I'll be prolonging the discussion. That's why I
Yeah,
kept-
so there is a no, but I would say the input materials, when as far as if you know the fly ash mission, which requires to use for the public infrastructure, you have to use this much of fly ash bricks in public infrastructure depending upon the strength required. So there are BIS guidelines for that. You have the steel which is going to the green steel now. Indian government have started that initiative. So the green steel certification, if you have for the public procurement, that will be prioritized. So all those things are pictured in the bits and pieces. For example, if there is a power plant, so up to the 300 kilometers, they have to supply the fly ash for free. Even they have to pay for these transportation charges. And those government development happening around the infrastructure, they have to utilize the fly ash. So these kind of things are there, but in bits and pieces.
I want to know if there's any student who wants to go, because we are hogging the limelight. Otherwise, any other student?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the session. It was really insightful. I wanted to understand how smaller organizations and enterprises can integrate both double materiality and ESG framework into their strategy, considering they have very limited resources and limited expertise. So how can they integrate both of them?
I think you have actually, that's the pain point. For the smaller industries, MSMEs you talk about, it's a one-man show. मैं ही रावण वही चलता है वहाँ पे. तो they actually lack resources. They do not have expertise over the subject. And when you're talking about double materiality, MSME तक तो double materiality पहुँचा ही नहीं है. Materiality नहीं पहुँचा, double materiality तो बहुत दूर की बात है. मतलब double materiality आज सिर्फ बड़ी जो top वो 1000 कंपनीज हैं ना, वही बातें कर रही हैं उसकी. So it's actually a very pain point. मैं आपको पेन ही बता सकती हूँ. अभी उसका जो ऑल्टरनेटिव है ना, वो यही है, जैसे हम ऑटोमोटिव इंडस्ट्री में आई थिंक सब में हो रहा होगा, क्योंकि somebody has to support MSME. For example, in automotive industry, so while I was with Maruti, we separately opened a center. It was 15 years back that we opened a center which was only for supplier development. At that time we were talking about their manufacturing excellency, their quality improvements and all those things, because they do not have resource and expertise to have capabilities to produce zero defect products, or to smooth their production lines so that there are no delivery delays. So OEM started off with the hand holding of tier 1. Over a period of time, the tier 1 has matured enough that they have started holding hands of the tier 2. For example, now we are a tier 1 company. So I am integrating my supply chain to handhold them. So we are doing it for them. We are conducting the awareness sessions to make them aware of, what ESG and sustainability is, what are our expectations from you, and in the global picture, what, ultimately OEM is, demanding. So we conduct the awareness sessions. We developed an assessment check sheet to, to understand where do they stand. We encourage them to at least, do the basic compliances. For example, ISO 14001, 45001, these are the basic requirements which पहले 9001 की बातें होती थी, अब ये 14001 and OSAs, these things are, so we encourage them and we handhold them. That is the only way, you can move forward. MSME on itself, they cannot do it.
All right, thank you.
But there is a optimistic part of it. MSME, they do not have resources, that is one point. But before that, there's a problem. They do not know what they want to do. They do not have time to, other than to produce and sell in the market. That's the first thing. Many of the government has some initiative in the picture that if you are doing this thing, energy conservation, or in some program towards renewable or reducing energy efficiency, government is paying you 50 lakh with a lesser loan or helping you to develop that. They do not know. If you go any MSME industry, you will find one person who is filing all the reports for the environment, who is dealing with all the things. He doesn't know beyond that. So if you're talking about double materiality, forget double. Double materiality is even not at the larger scale. I see that when they write the risks and opportunities, they have to decide for the first. You will see across the sector, they have copied from each other. They do not know if they are in the water stress area, their material risk is different from the other group. So it is happening like that. So they are not into that zone. One person is dealing all the reports for compliance report for the company, for the environment, everything. So they do not know. One is they need a resource. So that has to come from the intent inside, the drive. There are some scope of institutional funding as well for them, but they do not know about it. We have to tell them this is it. If you install this equipment, you will get funding from the government. So yes, we have to go far, but there are certain things.
Okay, my question goes to Mr. Apurva. Since you said that global companies would reach the target faster, and you also spoke of benefit corporation. So is there an endeavor by the Indian government that they benchmark the BRSR to benefit corporation in terms of compliance and try to incorporate something that's missing out? Is what I want to know. And does it really have any relevance? Like the Indian paradigm would be certainly different from the US paradigm. So does it hold relevance, and do they endeavor to benchmark is what I wanted to understand.
So regarding the BRSR benchmarking, I'd let Sandeep speak. I think he's the main expert here.
So one is that BRSR is only for India. India is the only country which has developed one platform. So if you are talking about the Europe, they have different platform. They have two different requirement, which is also compliance to EU ETS program. They have to do disclosure for the carbon disclosure project and for the government. So they are the one who have started this. So there is a fairly not a good comparison. We started late. We started from bottom, and they have done 40 years, 50 years back. Sure. So we are following up that system. Right now, the situation very connected to that. You have heard about CBAM, right? Yes. So they have started. It has an equation, geopolitical connection of that, why they are putting up into the picture. But they are going now. The bigger question is, if we are sending a material in Europe, we have to pay the tax which matches the manufacturing price of that country, of EU ETS. Okay. So if I'm selling 50,000 per ton steel here, and they are doing 1 lakh, so I have to pay 50 lakh to them. Correct. So there are multiple aspects of it. So we are not able to do that. So the government has started initiative that why do not we have CCTS here in India? Right. So we say that we have our own. We are putting money into our own. So even what is left, we can do. So they have put up a system. They are still, I would say, dominating that this is what I'm opening the market for you, only for this if you meet. So it is a non-competitive thing. They are just putting up a system. So our challenge is what is indigenous framework, how we can meet, and it is good enough, fairly competitive, or fairly fine with the international framework
Only
like GRI and
considering
all.
the speed at which we were reaching the target is my question was started on that, the benchmarking.
Our target or their target?
No, it is a 1.5 is a global target, right?
That we are not going to meet. We are already exceeded 1.8. It is not going to happen. See, the fundamental problem which our government also has, we talk about the policy level achievement or goal. And the implementation at the ground level doesn't match that. So if you are reaching to that, we have to reduce from whatever left we have. Right. We do not calculate that if we do at the ground level, each will reach to 1.5 to that. So it is acceptable. With the recent report of IPCC that you see, UNFCCC, it says that we have already exceeded. You have to do much beyond to meet 2. Okay. So that is the practically, is in the report I can write anything. That's the...
I have one question. So, the question is like you were talking about the difference in the questions which are asked and the type of disclosure which company does. So, like when I'm comparing companies on financial parameters, there are quantitative criteria. So I can say, okay, this company is performing better than the other. So are there any frameworks to understand the quality of disclosure on the ESG aspect also? So any quantifiable framework or any other kind of framework where I can say, okay, this company is better in disclosure, so can be given a higher score on the disclosure aspect as compared to some other XYZ company, say in the same sector or across sectors.
So that is what I had also tried to do. So right now the format which has developed, it has a holistic approach that you start reporting first. Every sector has its own importance, its own gross value addition, maybe per ton of per million rupees or per ton of product they produce. So you cannot compare that gross value addition for the product. One product will be different from other product. So if we are saying the financial performance we can do. Financial performance may be for one workforce, how much million rupees you do in a year, or maybe for 1 gigajoule or energy, how much production you do. So it depends upon that. That is not comparable because the product value is different. But financial we can do even now, but that is not the purpose of BRSR. And you will not be able to do it right now because even if you see the BRSR, they are asking about the CSR information, net worth, and turnover in between on maybe some section C or B somewhere about just CSR and how much is your turnover.
Because there are some companies like Bloomberg, they give a disclosure score to these organizations. So are there any parameters, like how do they decide that out of 100 this company has to have a disclosure score of 60 or somebody has 70 and so on?
So the basic is every rating agency have their own KPIs developed.
Okay, that's only specific to that.
Yes, they calculate that for my perspective, for my rating, how much is the weightage given to that particular indicator. So you have developed the KPIs and with the KPI multiplied by that indicator gives you a number. So you can say this is better, this is not better. But this is against prejudice.
Yes.
I am doing one rating will be different from
Somebody
what other is
might
doing.
do.
That is one of the problem with the ESG disclosure
Right.
because there is no standard or
Right.
regulatory control over it.
I have a question. So my question is to Mr. Param and Mr. Tanuji. So I was concerned about the social factors, and you both were addressing that. So in the current scenario where the diseases are increasing, so what are the better ways that we address the same to the blue collars? So that is the concerning factor that I had. And in what ways we can support their physical and mental well-being?
Okay. One of the initiatives at Impresario that we have taken that the annual appraisal or incremental process, it becomes very prejudiced and there are a lot to say about it. We moved to a quarterly incentive part wherein it is much more transparent and the parameters that we evaluate are in open domain. For everybody to see, like if I talk about my sector, the restaurants, we have developed multiple domains wherein the reporting happens from each restaurant, and it covers lot many KPIs of the social pillar in terms of welfare, in terms of the compliance, the community engagement, the DEI part, and also the health and safety part in that also. And they're evaluated on all those parameters, and it is there for their peers also to see that yes, the performance is better, so the PLI is better for them, and that gives them a competitive edge also. That they've done better in this quarter, we can also catch that up.
So we are also actually linking our ESG KPIs with the business scorecard now. Earlier, though ESG was completely missing. So now we have started integrating ESG KPIs into business scorecard. Now the social parameters into it. So honestly, we are at a stage where just actually measuring where we are today. For example, we have some employee welfare funds, and this employee welfare fund is some percentage of our total turnover, and it is allocated to ABCD activities. Now what I am trying to do is I am trying to find the impact of these ABCD activities. Or I mean, if the impact is good, maybe I'll continue with this activity, and maybe if the impact of B activity is not that good, so I'll remove that activity. If my welfare fund budget is fixed, I will try to find out some other activity in which I get more impact in terms of that. For example, we have a safety budget. So now how much of this budget is allocated for the preventive rather than the corrective? कि एक्सीडेंट होने के बाद मुझे कोई मतलब हॉस्पिटल लेके जाना पड़ रहा है उसको, या मैंने प्रिवेंशन ऐसी कर रखी कि एक्सीडेंट हो ही ना. सो आई हैव टू स्पेंड माई मनी मोर ऑन द प्रिवेंटिव साइड ऑफ थिंग्स rather than on the corrective side of things. This is how we are trying to build it. We are currently I'm just telling you honestly that we are mapping all these things, but that is the way to move forward. So any training and development fund is there, right? So we are trying to find out what sort of trainings are we giving. So we are now trying to identify the futuristic trainings. 10 साल से जो चल रही हैं कि लीन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करा दोगे, 5S करा दोगे, ये सब करा दोगे. तो now we are moving on to the futuristic trainings, and we want to allocate budgets on those trainings now. So that is how we are bifurcating our things into social.
Sir, I have a question. Regarding the BRSR report. So what I file a BRSR for my company, where I have during in the emission, what we file is that whatever we are getting from the fuel analyzer for the DG stack monitoring, we file it. So how actually it has to be done? It is that only the value what we get in the report has to be filed, or in a different way?
So in the report, you are talking particularly about the emission report.
Yes.
To fill it. Emission report asks about currently. I'm just asking to the point answer to your question. So it is asking how much emission of the particular parameter PM-SO2 NOx per year. So you know the volumetric flow of your DG stack or stack. You know the concentration multiplied by volumetric flow is the amount multiplied by the 365 or how many days you are working. That's the number.
That indicates, but this clarity is not given by the BRSR.
It's not given. It has to improve for sure.
Okay.
Everybody is learning.
Okay, thank you.
Beyond ESG solutions or products and solutions, they are going to be little more expensive than what you normally are producing. So in a price sensitive nation like ours, how easy it is going to be for even the manufacturers or the service providers to even think of more ESG compliant or future beyond ESG solutions? So I think, overall, if you see these days, people term something as eco-friendly and charge more, right? That's again a business model, right? But if you see in reality, the cost is less. So this mindset or, some policy has to come in. That is one. And in terms of, you mentioned about the cost, initial cost is always high. I can talk about the real estate sector, and we also have to look at the ROI, as I said, right? So it is not a standard, solution in all cases. It has to be looked at, on a case-to-case basis. And I'll take an example of glass. The double glazed glass, if it is very costly. right? And people or architects without thinking say, have a glass here and it'll solve your purpose. It'll not let the heat come in. A simpler solution would be have a projection which blocks the sun into the space, right? So I think, in terms of at least in buildings, if you see the major energy guzzler is HVAC, right? So we have to ensure what is the first step to reduce the energy demand in terms of AC lighting, and then offset the rest, by RECs or any other mechanism. So again, in terms of costing, I would say the initial incremental cost is not that high. It may be around 3%, 5%. But that is only on the active building side, which is ultimately more efficient in the longer run. So a thorough ROI has to be done, and I feel it's just about awareness, that people need to be aware, what is it that, your cost is going towards, and what is the benefit that you will get ultimately. So that's on the real estate sector.
In general also, maybe he's rightly saying that initial cost might be high, but अगर आप उसका पूरा life cycle देखोगे ना, आप गाड़ी की बात करो, किसी भी चीज़ की बात करो, मैं एक फ्रिज की भी बात करती हूँ, आप 5-star रेटिंग फ्रिज घर में लाते हो, इट इज़ ऑब्वियसली कॉस्टलियर देन 3-star रेटिंग फ्रिज और AC. बट अगर आप उसका लाइफ साइकिल 15 साल 20 साल वो फ्रिज आपके घर में रहता है, वो कितनी एनर्जी कंज्यूम कर रहा है, उस बिल के अंदर आपने कितना सेविंग किया है. If you do that comparison, there will always be a cost advantage. So instead of just going for the initial cost of the thing, it is better to look at the overall life cycle. मतलब बहुत जनरल, जैसे आप जनरल स्टोर्स में देखो ना, उन लोगों को वो पेप्सी कोका कोला वाले वो फ्री फ्रिज देते हैं, एंड दे आर वेरी वेरी हैप्पी कि हमें फ्री फ्रिज मिला है, एंड ठीक है. बट वो जो नहीं समझते, वो फ्रिज ट्रांसपेरेंट आगे है, इट इज़ कंज्यूमिंग मोर एनर्जी बिकॉज आपका जो है ना लॉस हो रहा है. तो वो फ्री की चीज़ उनको ज़्यादा महंगी पड़ रही है, रादर देन कि वो अपना 5-star रेटिंग का फ्रिज खुद खरीदें और अपने इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कॉस्ट बचाएं लॉन्ग रन में.
Sir, just one line to your question. Your question is very fundamental, and this is writing the growth story of India. You are not going to grow and be the master by following any best technology available right now. You can grow, you can excel only if you innovate. You do not have the privilege of, you already have shortage of the food, shortage of water, clean water. So you have to innovate like you do for moon mission. We did at 1/4 or 1/5 of the price what USA had done. That's the only way for India to grow up.
I have a question for Gopal ji. Gopal ji, Ashwin here.
Yeah, so this is a fantastic question because it's important for all business owners in India, right? And if you work with any client in India, this is something that comes up all the time, that we are a very price sensitive market. We are a very competitive market as well. So when it comes to suggesting any new initiatives to any organization, immediately there would be a pushback. The reason for this is because they see this as an additional cost. What we need to address there is what it is being viewed as. A lot of times, and this is how ESG in general is going to work, right? So it's not a department specific issue. A lot of what you need to do to address things like this is that you need to get the right stakeholders in the room, the right decision makers in the room, who can then start to see what are the potential co-benefits of the measure that you're suggesting, right? So, for example, just to use one of the examples that the panel was just mentioning. So, if you're talking about a fridge, if I come to you and ask you कि in your organization, आप please सारे front door जो fridge हैं उनको replace कर दीजिए, just get all 5-star fridges. Now, if you are the CFO of the organization, you'll be like, how much it is going to cost me, right? Because you're looking primarily at my proposal from a financial lens. But an organization is not just about finance. If in the same room there's another person, who sits and looks at the decarbonization plans of the organization, they'll see the co-benefit immediately, right? And they can inform you that we might pay extra, but ये हमें बहुत ज़्यादा advantage दे देगा, because we, this directly contributes to maybe reducing our emissions from day one, and there's a time we can make back this money. So The point is that you need to start to frame these things as co-benefits, really identify what are those potential additional benefits to be had from any of the proposals that you are putting in, and then how we can create a win-win situation for everyone.
For a B2C business, it would be really difficult to influence so many customers. So you'll have to run some kind of educational campaigns and all as a service provider or a manufacturer.
100%,
So
absolutely.
manufacturing is one thing, developing innovative solutions is one thing, but communicating them to the market that, what is the long-term benefit and all, that's a big exercise.
Yeah, that's why it's a systemic issue, right? It's not it's not the problem of a specific organization or a specific department.
right.
Everybody has a part that they need to then play.
That's right. Thank you.
Hello, respected guest, esteemed faculty, and my dear friends. Due to the time constraints, we won't be able to take any further questions. It was an enriching discussion, and we are delighted to have all of us here. On behalf of everyone, I would sincerely like to thank our panelists for taking out time to share their invaluable insights today. Mr. Apurv Kaushik, Mr. Sanjeev K. Kanchan, Ms. Tanu S. Ahuja, Mr. Gopal N.P. and Mr. Param Puneet Singh, thank you for your thought-provoking contributions. I would also like to take a moment to thank our moderator, Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal, for guiding us through such an engaging and interactive session. Now, we would like to request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to kindly facilitate our esteemed panelists. To begin, we request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to honor Mr. Apurv Kaushik for his thought-provoking perspectives that added immense value to the summit.
Next, we request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Sanjeev K. Kanchan for his exceptional contribution that made this summit both insightful and impactful.
Following this, I would request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to kindly felicitate Ms. Tanu S. Ahuja in appreciation of sharing her valuable insights today with us.
We now invite Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to felicitate Mr. Gopal N.P. as an expression of our sincere appreciation for his insightful participation.
We now request Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal to honor Mr. Param Puneet Singh with a gesture of thanks for his meaningful insights and contributions to the summit. We would now invite Dr. Professor Monica Chopra to felicitate Dr. Professor Sonu Goyal for her invaluable role as our moderator and for guiding today's session.
Thank you to everyone present here. Thank you everyone present here for being part of this felicitation ceremony, and once again our special thanks to our panelists and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Corporate Sustainability Leadership Summit 2025. We hope this session has encouraged each of us to go beyond compliance, where ESG is not just a mere checklist but a core value driver. We sincerely thank everyone, including our guests, participants, faculty, students, and staff of IMI for making this summit a resounding success. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to all our esteemed sponsors for their invaluable support for making Conventus 2025, the annual management conclave of IMI Delhi, a grand success. A special thanks to our title sponsor, Bank of Baroda, whose partnership has been instrumental in bringing this event to life. We are equally thankful to our co-sponsor RPSG and our Finance Summit sponsor Indian Bank for their continued encouragement. Our appreciation also goes to ICICI Bank, banking partner, LIC, insurance partner, HFCL, telecom solution partner, and STEM Executive Search Private Limited sustainability partner for their support in diverse domains. We sincerely thank Key Properties, real estate partner, Phoenix Global, learning partner, Royal Enfield, exploration partner, Vanessa Care, fragrance partner, Plum Loving Body, bath and body care partner, Go Grab, convenience partner, Whitehaven, entertainment partner, and Fever FM, media partner, for enriching the experience of Conventus 2025. Your collaboration and trust continue to inspire us to make every edition of Conventus bigger, bolder, and better. Now, we would like to invite our panelists, moderator, and team members to join us on stage for a group photograph to capture this moment. Thank you.